Hey guys, it's Julesy, and what kind of vibes am I giving today? Is it feeling luxurious? Did we do something? Have we done something? Okay, so my last get ready with me was such a good time and a good key, and I really appreciate all the comments when I was talking about how my body has changed post 30. And I really enjoy being able to create a space where like we can remove the shame and the stigma from having conversations about things that are just going to happen that are out of our control that social media tends to give like a false understanding of, and really makes us all have all different sorts of like, what's the word for it, dysmorphia. Girl, I want us to be proud of the bodies that we live in and to have body positivity. But one thing that I didn't really talk as much as I intended to about was vaginas. All right. Plenty of us are dealing with things that carry societal shame, and I am always happy to provide like an avenue where we can be unabashed about said things, because how do we progress? And I didn't really talk as much as I intended to about vaginas and all the organs associated with that area, the nether regions of our body. And it's crazy because as much as I want to create this unabashed avenue for us to like talk about these things, I've been hesitant because that is an arena where people will take everything and anything and turn it against you. Like I did comment in the video about UTIs, and the fact that I at one point was dealing with going between a yeast infection and vaginosis or BV. And somebody will take that and be like, ew, how nasty, you've been dealing with a sensitive vagina. Like, ew, you've been battling with bacterial vaginosis and yeast infections. Like, ew, your diet. Ew, you're not drinking enough water. Ew, who are you having sex with? And it's just so ignorant to reduce things like that to diet, to whether you clean properly, to who you bump the pelvic bones with. And because, I mean, really, baby, to tell you the truth, it's not that simple. Somebody's gonna make a B. Simone reference. Keep that comment to yourself. Thank you. Aside from the shady comments, because that's not the only reason, societal shame also enters into like how we engage in our healthcare system. And I mean, it enters into how we engage in the healthcare system, and also is part of like why we even shame people and why it's not that simple in the first place. Because truth be told, for most of us in the United States of America, we're dealing with pretty lackluster, insufficient healthcare infrastructures. A lot of us are struggling when it comes to how we get the proper medical care. And when it comes to all things healthcare policy, especially in this recent culture wars, this recent iteration of whatever is going on in Washington, D.C., our reproductive care has consistently been one of the first things that gets hit, especially for the Black community. Yes, our reproductive care is one of the first things to always get hit with every wavelength that our current administration tries to undo the Affordable Care Act. Now, I would love for us all to take a moment and talk about our personal experiences, even finding a decent gynecologist. So my own experience with this is I knew when I moved from Washington, D.C. to Houston, Texas, I was going to take a hit with my healthcare. I had really robust healthcare because D.C. is federal, like there is no state government. So you get the full suite of all federal policies. So when the ACA was enacted, I got all the benefits of the ACA. Now in Houston, it wasn't too bad because there was a women's health program. For if you were within a certain economic range, you could qualify for the health program. But I had a horrible time with trying to get something as simple as birth control, because of the way they make an assumption of who you are based on if you are engaging with services for low income people. So I have a whole video about how wildly rude the experience was with just trying to get said birth control. Like, why would you ever approach me talk about, well, why would you just wear condoms, as if that's all that birth control is for? Girl, I thought in the 21st century we were a little bit more evolved than that. But apparently the front offices at one doctor in South Houston, maybe not. You can go watch that video though. In Dallas, I did manage to procure like half decent marketplace health insurance. And I actually did like my gynecologist. She was a little, trying to get a Black woman gynecologist, girl, a little backlog. But since moving to North Carolina, which I kind of knew, I knew, I had the thought, okay? But I didn't know that it would be that bad. My exact experience here with the OBGYN at Novant, which is like the primary healthcare provider in the state of North Carolina. I don't even think it's possible to go to the doctor out here in North Carolina without them having zero association with Novant. Matter of fact, the gynecology appointment that I scheduled for the top of next year, we're back at Novant. This time it's with a black woman, so maybe a little bit better. But let me tell you, it was really illuminating for me to attempt to, one, find an OBGYN this past year without any health insurance. Knowing that I was going to be paying out of pocket, that wasn't even the biggest issue, because I think, okay, I don't have health insurance. I'm going to be paying out of pocket. It's like getting a pap smear and all the testing that comes with that is like the one thing I do a year. And so I had kind of planned for that cost based on how much it had cost me in Dallas. But here in North Carolina, it was just extremely frustrating. And what going through the experiences constantly reminds me, especially as Black people, dealing with stigmas when we go to the doctor, that's compounded by when we seek low-cost care. There seems to always be an assumption of like loose moral, or that you somehow put yourself in this financial predicament versus, we just living in a really poor, shitty healthcare infrastructure. It's kind of crazy. I think one of the things from my last video is realizing how many people mention like PCOS and endometriosis, and just how we tend to share these really hushed stories about discovering fibroids, discovering PCOS and endometriosis, and the uptick in discussing HPV. But a lot of us don't actually have access to robust enough healthcare to really handle any of these scenarios. All of this is wrapped up in politics. Now, in North Carolina, we have one senator, okay? Well, really, we have two senators up to the same shenanigans, but let's focus on one for now. Tom Tillis. Tom, you don't even deserve for me to say your name correctly, but Tom Tillis has voted to repeal part or all of the Affordable Care Act consistently. He has also voted to allow big drug companies to raise prescription drug costs and allow health insurance companies to stop paying for any of the prescriptions. So I'm paying for health insurance and it's not even gonna cover what I need it for, though. Is that what you're talking about? And you think about the sort of care, the health care that federal employees, i.e. senators, get when they sit on the Hill. As I said before, calling your senators is very influential, and Tillis may be persuadable. Maybe Senator Tillis might hear us if we give him a ring and let him know that healthcare and really health insurance reform is a large looming issue. I really want to thank Piedmont Rising, because in the next couple of months, I will be in partnership with them to educate my audience on the politics of what's happening around healthcare access, what our one Senator Tom Tillis is up to in the state of North Carolina, how you, if you live in North Carolina, can get involved, and for you who live in the United States, how you can enact some of these same tips and information within your own state health. Because all of what's happening here in North Carolina really is a hotbed. There's a lot happening here on the political side with regards to all sorts of that directly impacts the community most of my audience sits in. I'm super excited for this partnership because it's a way to educate, and also another way to open up conversation. Trying to plan out how I was going to get a pap smear done in North Carolina was incredibly difficult. Like, I was calling around just trying to get a price, and a pap smear is something that most half the population gets once a year, once every other year. It's like a standard medical office visit, and I couldn't even get a ballpark range on how much different offices would be charging for a pap smear. And then when you try to call the clinics up, it's just the way they talk to you. And I come with a certain amount of privilege, right? When I engage with our healthcare infrastructure, that one, I have the means to pay for my healthcare out of pocket, that two, I have a certain amount of education, and that I talk a certain way, and I speak, and I don't have any children. And I can't imagine trying to approach this healthcare system with a more difficult economic means if I have children, or if I was non-binary or trans. And the way in which people, me with all my privilege, I'm having a hard time. Imagine how all these other people within my community are also having a very difficult time with seeking out proper. When it comes to things like reproductive care, I do think that is one of the areas where a lot of us don't understand especially for the Black community, a lot of research is lacking around the ways in which certain diseases directly impact us, why certain diseases are more prominent within our community. And, it's kind of wild to hear like so many of my peers dealing with fibroids. And I'm like, well, then you have the question of, have you even been getting proper care? How do you know what to ask? And I think that's why certain movements kind of fluster over in the Black community, because when we go to the doctor, it is really difficult for us to, one, get access to good, robust health care, and doctors with good bedside manners who will actually sit and talk to us, not rush through our visits, not be dismissive, not accuse us of being sexually promiscuous. And there is a whole history of like why that interaction with Black women in the medical profession and this assumption of promiscuity has been like this dynamic. There is a history to that. So I do think it's important for us to come together and be able to have these conversations without shame, like how we have dealt with our reproductive health care. So I did mean to give some tips. So let's close out the video on some tips of what has helped me as my body has changed and the beautiful, wonderful organ that is the vagina has kind of sort of revolted against me. Okay. I thus far, how do I frame this? I understand my privilege in that thus far, I have not had to deal with PCOS, endometriosis, or fibroids. I have had a ton of my homegirls deal with various issues, and it's tough. It's tough. So if you have tips on that, please comment down below. If you live in North Carolina and you have found a doctor who's good at providing that care, any state you live in, leave the recommendation down below. Now, for me, one thing when it comes to going to the OBGYN, especially when I'm paying out of pocket, is I track my period. And not only do I track my period, I track my ovulation, I track changes and feels in my cervical mucus, and I'm not even trying to get pregnant. So I track all that stuff because I want to be able to go into the doctor, because I do tend to feel rushed oftentimes, especially when going to the gynecologist, that I can say, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. So I use the Glow app, which it's a little clunky because it will be either you're trying to not get pregnant or get pregnant. And honestly, to get a lot of the features, you have to be, I'm trying to get pregnant part, and just like, I mean, I don't know. I think for some people that's a little triggering, but it's been helpful because I also use Clue, but Clue doesn't have robust enough when it comes to specific matters of like what's going on down there that I would like to speak with my doctor to. It doesn't allow me to track it as well, but I do use the Clue app, which is really good at predicting when your menstrual cycle is going to start. And also tracking your bowel movements. Yes, if you are not a person who goes every day like myself, it helps me to be mindful of it helps me to not be a hypochondriac, to not freak out and not think, oh my gosh, I'm dying. But it also helps me to be mindful of the way my body is functioning and to be connected. Alkaline water. Water is not going to be the panacea. It is not going to be the solvent, but I have found that alkaline water it's a nice touch. My probiotics that I mentioned in the last video, refrigerated probiotics I get them from Whole Foods, but you absolutely want to get refrigerated probiotics. Okay. Another thing that has been has been robustly changing. Why do I keep saying robust? That has been a game changer. Not using tampons and pads, not using the mainstream ones, switching over to cotton organic pads and using a menstrual cup. Girl, now there are menstrual discs, there are menstrual cups. Yes, your fingers are gonna get some blood on them, but the switch up from like the uncomfortableness of one having really, really bad cramps. I used to pass out from my cramps, from just the way my body would negatively react to whatever chemicals are in name brand or like the more common pads. My period is way shorter. It's way more consistent. And I've just had, for me, and this is not, this is anecdotal, okay? I'm not a medical professional, but the menstrual cup has been great. I prefer the cup because I'm also into the, how this impacts the ecosystem. So I try to minimize my waste. You do boil them at the end of each cycle. You do wash them. My fingers do get blood on them, but I wash my hands a lot. It's fine. And also I'm able to like chart how much blood I actually comes out, and it's like, I have tendencies to be a hypochondriac. And I think a lot of us, because we don't have access to good health care and we don't get a lot of our questions answered, you know, how do we understand what is actually happening with our bodies? Like, what does it mean to actually have a blood clot? Am I actually having a lot of blood clots? Is this more than normal? Like, what's going on? And the way it changes colors and smell and all that stuff. And I know it's like, ew, I don't want to do it. I love it. Okay. Switching over to organic cotton pads. I don't use tampons anymore because I use a menstrual cup. It's just a godsend. It's easier, way less accidents, way less having to clean red stains out of my white pants, girl. But with the only thing with the organic cotton pads is that there is definitely a chemical in those regular pads that like draws in moisture. And that chemical is profound because a drop of blood on an organic pad feels like gallons. And I just use them as liner. I just use them because I know as soon as I feel the wetness, I'm emptying out my cup, you know. And typically when I wear the menstrual cup, I usually change it every 2 to 3 hours anyway. But sometimes you're traveling or in transit or things are just happening, and you know, I keep the cotton pads on, but the slip and slide game on them is a little different. I don't know if I could wear them wholly without wearing a menstrual cup or something else, because the slip and slide game, I don't know what they putting in them, the chemical they was using to draw the blood into the center of the pads, but it ain't any organic cotton ones. All right, the vagina feels a lot fresher. It's thankful, but the potential for slip and slide, you just have to be a little bit more mindful. I personally don't do like the yoni washes and stuff. I have a very sensitive vagina, so I have to use dye and scent-free soap. I stopped wearing cotton underwear a while ago because working out, I was getting chafing. I got a rash on my thighs from running, and it was just not fun, and we really need to get our health together. So we wear seamless underwear now, but I do, if I wear colored because they don't have the white part in them, I do now wear a cotton panty liner because the dyes from the underwear, girl, when I tell you my ish is sensitive, she has a mind of her own, and we just have to respect that. That is that on that. And I think the other thing you could do is create a community of homegirls and start the conversation. Be more open with each other, because I promise you there is all something we are quietly living in shame with. And let me not just say homegirls, people with vaginas. Okay, all of them. If you know they have one, and you know we all still going to the doctor and we don't want it to kill us, let's all have a conversation with people that we trust and love and who will really have our best interest at heart, and start that conversation. And I would definitely say, if you're able to use the Glow or Clue app to chart your menstrual cycle, to write down all your questions before you go to a gynecologist, and don't be shy. Do not get in there and let them walk all over you. I am very much so, excuse me, sis, I still have more questions. Where are you running off to? Excuse me, I'm paying for this visit. So, okay, what you gonna give me is your time, because that's what I paid for. Thank you. So if you can go in prepared, typically you can kind of, and I mean, it sucks that we have to be this big of an advocate for our own health, but sis, we have to. So being able to go in and be respectfully demand that your questions are answered, I think you can have a better experience. So let me know, one, how has your JJ changed since you hit 30? What are the things you've done to keep her happy, keep her balanced? And if you're in Charlotte, who's a good gynecologist that's still taking new patients? Let us know. Thanks again to Piedmont Rising for supporting. I will have links down below on Piedmont Rising that you can check out for yourself. And I'm excited to be bringing you more information on healthcare instead of Tom Tillis. I keep wanting to call this man Thomas, but does it really matter? That man. I'll have more videos on him coming up. All right. Tuesday.